Bueno, Carlos ya nos ha presentado, Javier y a mí, así que creo que podemos empezar. Es un verdadero placer estar con vosotros hoy. Y bueno, vamos a empezar la presentación. Yo lo que quería empezar es con la idea es presentar algunos tópicos del programa de trabajo 2023, que son los que implementan los partenariados con la industria Made in Europe y Processes for Planet. Y como Nieves presentaba, se ve que ya tenéis mucho éxito en estos dos partenariados, así que lo único que os podemos desear es que sigáis con el mismo éxito. Como Carlos decía, la presentación, si me lo permitís, va a ser en inglés, más que nada porque estamos acostumbrados al lenguaje técnico en inglés y cuando intento hacerlo en otro idioma, pues al final esto acaba siendo un mezclete. Así que yo creo que lo mejor es pasar directamente al inglés y luego cuando vengan las preguntas, pues claro, ahí ya cambiamos de idioma otra vez sin problemas. Carlos Nieves, lo que estaba pensando es, como llevamos un poquitín de retraso y muchas de las cosas que yo decía aquí en la introducción ya las ha cubierto Nieves, pues quizás podemos movernos directamente a lo que serían los tópicos. Entonces, si puedes, si la siguiente también. Veo que no tienes la última presentación, pero bueno, no importa, lo paso así. Quizás pueda empezar ya aquí. Entonces, la idea, I said it will be in English, so I move in English if you allow me. So the idea here is that we are talking about cluster 4, which is the cluster for digital, industry and space, which is really a very, very broad cluster. And as it was in the work program 21-22, in the work program 23-24, you will see that the work program is also divided in 6 different destinations. And the destinations that we will discuss, or we will talk about with Javier today, will be destination 1 and destination 2. From my side, I will focus on destination 1, and because this is the destination in which the topics for Made in Europe and Processes for Planet appear. So if I may could just have the next slide. And the next one, because I understood, Carlos, that you will present those issues later on. Now I think you went a little bit too far, but I think that should be okay. Okay. Thank you. So the first topics are for the manufacturing industry. So these are the topics that implement the Made in Europe co-program partnership. For the 2023 year, we have 4 topics, 2 which are innovation action, so higher TRL levels, higher technology readiness levels, and 1 RIA, and 1 concerted and support action. If I can just make a parenthesis here, you see that one of the topics is lump sums. Nieves talked about it, and I understood that, Carlos, you are going to present these lump sums later on. What can be also interesting, and I add the link at the end of our presentation, is that last week there were the info days for cluster 4. And then there we presented all the topics, but also we have very interesting presentations on horizontal issues. And there was a presentation on lump sums by one of our colleagues who is really very knowledgeable about it and very clear. So apart from the presentation from Carlos, maybe it will be a good idea to go to that link, and because all in the info days, what has happened is that we have registered the whole thing. So you can go and revisit what it was registered and what this colleague was presenting about lump sum. So this can be a good idea if you want to complement.
Sí, Garbiñe, no te preocupes que colgaremos todos los links después con los enlaces a los infodays y a las presentaciones que estás mencionando, sí.
Súper, muchas gracias. Vale, entonces igual podemos pasar a la transparencia siguiente. Okay, so this is the first topic for Made in Europe, and it's an innovation action. And if you see already in the title, this is kind of a funny topic, and it's a topic that they call a portfolio approach topic. And the idea there is that this topic is open to the proposals that can be addressing manufacture of complex products or high precision manufacturing technologies or highly customized laser-based production. So the idea here is that when you're preparing, so if you want to prepare a proposal for this topic, you have to choose one of these areas and say, okay, which is the area that you are addressing. You can also combine some of these of the areas. You can combine 2 of them. You can combine 3 of them if you want. But what we really advise you is that you combine these areas only if it makes sense to you, if it makes sense to the work you want to do, to the proposal. If you do it just kind of to have better chances to get your proposal financed, it's really not a good idea, because then you can see on the construction of the proposal that is artificial. Evaluators will see it, and then you will be penalized during the evaluation. So our advice is to look at it, say exactly which is the area, or these 3 areas you want to address, and go for it. So what you see here is that the topic has a total budget of 48 million euros, and we are expecting proposals with a contribution between 5 and 6 million euros. So that means we will be able to finance between 6 and 8 proposals. So how this will work? How it will work is then each proposal will be addressing one of these sub areas, and then let's say the first 2 proposals per area will be financed. And then if you take the first 2 per area, it will be 6 proposals financed. And this in respectively of the score the proposals have compared with the other areas. So the first for each 2 areas will be taken. And then if you have the first 6, you will have already spent 36 million euros. And then for the rest, we will need to see which has the higher scores. So the idea is that you have a balanced portfolio of all the 3 technologies. And no, there's not going to be direct competition from the beginning between these 3 areas. I hope I was not confusing and I was clarifying a little bit. And then as for the expected outcomes, is the ones that you have already on this slide, which are mainly that we are expecting outcomes on high precision manufacturing, on manufacturing of products, highly resilient and flexible production lines, enabling highly customized products, significant reduction also on the use of materials, on the use of waste, and reduction also of their defects and energy consumption. And then, of course, at the end of the day, what we are looking is to foster the competitiveness of the European manufacturing industry. If I could now move to the next topic. Okay, this topic is, I find it very interesting, really. It's about factory level and value chain approaches for remanufacturing. And here, when you see the EU contribution and the total budget, we should be able to finance about 7 projects, or even a little bit more. What is important in this project is that you take into account the definition of remanufacturing that appears under the scope of this topic, and that you are sure when you are preparing your proposal that you adhere to this definition. When you see here, what they say is that what is key for remanufacturing is to retain the usefulness or at the end of the life of both the products and the components. And then what is essentially a step is to keep then these products and these components on the circular economy as long as possible. It is not about recycling. It is not about reusing only. So again, be sure that you are online with that. The proposals then are expected to develop cutting-edge remanufacturing approaches. But then what is very important is not only that you have these cutting-edge remanufacturing approaches, but also that you are able to incorporate this idea within real circular value chain. So both things are going to be evaluated. And then which are the expected outcomes, as you have in there, is first to be able to scale green and digital technologies supporting remanufacturing. And I highlight the idea of digital technologies, because if you read the scope, the fact that it's also digital is not always so evident, so clear, but then we need to scale up the technologies, but we need also to scale up everything that goes around a digital technologies that is going to allow you for this remanufacturing. Then of course, remanufacturing of both components and products, and then also very important with these topics are skills and education capacities. If I could have the next slide, please. The next two topics, what I thought is very important to understand or to keep in mind is that they are both very strong, and even if it's not the only component, but they are both very strong on the digital component. So if you want to apply for this one, keep this in mind. Here we are talking about expected EU contribution of 4 to 6 million euros, and we have a total budget of 32. So again, there are topics which rather big budgets, but then we are able to finance a series of topics, a series of projects within that topic. This topic focuses on distributed system production, in which manufacturing is offered as a service. And the idea here of this distributed production is that then each manufacturer can really focus on what they are best to do, or where the innovation potential lies. And then what you need is to build the network that allows with all these manufacturers to come to the final product. And the proposal should focus on the development of models for manufacturing, then manufacturing as a service, and then of solutions that make use this flexibility of the manufacturing. So when you see already at the level of the description of the scope, you see that the digital components, that they were saying before, is very, very important. And then the human-centered perspective and to resilience to failures is something also that you need to take into account very much. As for the expected outcome, you see there availability of models, simulators, digital twins, decision-making and planning technologies, again, very much digital oriented. And then availability of technologies to swiftly adapt logistics and production to varying external conditions. And this is linked to the above is the smart manufacturing networks that should be resilient and capable of self-adaptation when you have external changes. The next topic is, if I could have just the next slide, super. This one you see is directly linked to the other. It's a concerted and support action, so it's not let's say a research project as such. The contribution is the 1 million euros and the total budget is 1, so we're expecting to finance just one proposal. And again, as I was saying before, very important to understand that this topic is linked to this digital component. What we're expecting there is the development of first a strategic foresight for manufacturing as a service. So the idea is to have a foresight of how this manufacturing as a service could look like in the future. And then to support the transfer of information and technologies between Horizon Europe projects. So for example, the project that have been financed or will be financed on the topic we presented before with other relevant initiatives. And you see that the initiatives the topic is mentioning are manufacturing data spaces of a network for European digital innovation hubs. So with this, I finalize the 4 topics that are implementing the Made in Europe work program. And then maybe if I just can move to the next one. So the next topics I'm going to present here are linked to the energy intensive process industries. And in energy intensive process industries, we have kind of 2 main priorities. The first one is energy efficient and climate neutral production processes. And the second one is circularity of resources and zero pollution. I see that Angels is talking later on about processes for planet, so I will not enter into that one. But I think what is important here is to understand what is under the scope of energy intensive process industries. Angel's we certainly present that Processes for Planet is covering 10 different sectors of energy-intensive industries, being chemicals, being cement, being steel, etc. And then you also have on the emission trade scheme a list of what are considered of energy-intensive process industries, and we will put this on the frequent asked questions. There are many sectors, and this is broad definition, that could be energy-intensive industries. For example, the glass sector that is not part of Processes for Planet is an energy-intensive industry sector, and this is part of the Emission Trade Directive scheme. If you go to food and feed, for example, sometimes we see it. These are not energy-intensive industries. They are not within Processes for Planet. They are not within the Emission Trade Directive. And I want to highlight this because it will be a pity that you prepare something for these topics and then you are kind of out of scope because you are not considered an energy-intensive industry. So I thought this was important. So the next topic, and the slide is already there, is energy efficient breakthroughs. The idea is that if you take, well, the energy efficiency that industry is getting in conventional plants is not the energy efficiency is improving from 1-2% annually, but no more than that. And what we are looking for in this topic is really huge breakthroughs on energy efficiency, and we say at least 30% of it. And for that, we need a combination of both things, digital technologies, but also highly energy efficient processes. Something that has been confusing, I think, in this topic, and we have had quite a lot of questions with that, is that we say that proposals are encouraged to consider outcomes of the projects carried out, and we give a topic, which is a topic for 2019. To say here is that we are not looking to necessarily to a continuity between the projects that were successful on that topic, but what we are just encouraging that you are aware that these projects exist and that you see where it makes sense for you to cooperate with these projects or just to have a link and to show that you are aware of what's going on there. Which are the expected outcomes? As I was saying before, we want to reduce the energy use by 30%. Important also to enable the techno-economic feasibility of these novel technologies and enable the potential of increased use of renewable energy. And here what is important is in the scope, we are talking about aspects like flexibility and link to this to digitalization, because if you are using renewable energies, clearly flexibility is an issue. You are not going to have maybe constant inputs of renewable energy. How can you deal with that? So this was part of the scope. And then, of course, to contribute to achieving EU climate neutrality goal. If I may have the next slide, please. So the next topic is about electrification of high temperature heating systems. And what is behind this topic is that basically the high temperature systems, and pay attention here, what we say is high temperature is more than 400 degrees. So these industrial heating systems are responsible for 20% of the process industry's greenhouse gas emissions. So if we manage to electrify and use renewable energy in doing so, we will reduce the related greenhouse gas emissions. Okay, important here, what we say is that the proposal should integrate existing highly efficient technologies, and we give kind of a list of technologies. These are not exhaustive lists, are just examples. And the key word here is integrate. How do you take then these technologies and integrate them into the industrial system? Then we are saying that, okay, you need to have an holistic approach and take into account other aspects like safety, flexibility, process control. We say also that you need to showcase this into a realistic demonstrator that then can be replicable to other processes. We have had this question already, and yes, only one demonstrator is enough, but this is Processes for Planet. Cross-cutting innovation between sectors is very important. So if you are only having one demonstrator, what you need to show is that then this is replicable and useful also to other sectors. If you are using it on the making it on the steel sector, but then that this can be also usable or replicable on the cement sector, on chemicals, etc., etc. This is important. Other question that we have had here is, do I need to use renewable energy into the renewable electricity in this demonstrator already? No, you don't need to. We are not asking for, but for example, something we are asking is that you take into account flexibility. Again, when you are working with renewable energies, flexibility is very important. So in the demonstrator, you don't need to use it, but you need to show that your system is prepared to use renewable energies later on. So for the rest, I think I will not go through the expected outcomes because you already have them there. And then maybe what is important in this topic is that there was a clerical mistake. So Nieves explained before that in the topics where we are asking for a business case and exploitation plan, what we are saying is that you have 3 more extra pages than the maximum allowed pages to be able then to cope and to explain your business case and your exploitation plans. In this topic, we made a mistake, and these 3 extra pages don't appear. We will put it on the frequent asked questions that yes, you have the right to use these 3 extra pages. And we have already discussed with our agency, with HADEA. And if you are applying to this, you will see that when you are introducing your proposal, you will be allowed to use 3 more extra pages. Maybe if I could move to the next one. I'm conscious of time, so I may fly a little bit on the next ones, but then you can come to the questions if you want. The next one is the modeling industry transitions. Here, which have been the questions? Well, the question first is, why do you have TRL levels? Is this a mistake? No, this is not a mistake. We are not making a reference to the technology readiness levels because this is not about technology. This is about modeling. So it's been done in purpose. So in this topic, basically, one of the other questions have been that we are asking, because you see that the total budget there is 30 millions, and we say the expected EU contribution is between 6 and 7. So that will mean that we will be able to finance 2 projects. So what we are saying on the topic text then that cooperation with other selected projects under this topic is strongly encouraged. And the question was, I mean, how can we start cooperating with a project that we don't know which one is going to be? So of course, you don't need to say how, I mean, with which project you are going to cooperate, but just to add within your proposal mechanisms that will allow you then later on to coordinate yourself with the other proposal that will be successful. So this is what we had in mind. As for the expected outcomes, well, is development of models, development of modeling scenarios. And then what is important there also is that where expected outcome is facilitate future EU national industry, climate and energy policy assessment. So we want these models to be useful for policymakers. But the last outcome is set the climate neutrality transition pathways for the process industries. So we want models which are useful for policymakers, but are also useful for industries to project themselves into these climate neutral transition pathways. If I may have the next slide. Yeah, okay, super. So here we enter into the second priority, which is circularity of resources and zero pollution. And one of the kind of features for the circularity part are the hubs for circularity. This hub for circularity is a concept that refers to the full scale industrial or industrial urban symbiosis that aims to keep the resources, including energy, water, and materials on the loop as soon as possible. as soon as possible, as long as possible. And to achieve this, what we need is innovation that is developed together with all the relevant stakeholders. I will not go on detail of this on this topic either, but you see the budget we are talking about. We are talking about a EU contribution between 15 and 20 million euros. This is really a very high budget. And why is high? Because what we're talking here is to demonstrate industrial symbiosis on a near commercial scale demonstrator. Okay, we are saying that this household circularity should integrate infrastructures and should integrate also energy networks and grids. So when you see the size of the demonstrator itself is such that what we are expecting there is go really to very big demonstrators, and this then is in accordance with the topic, with the budget we say that that could be used here. What the topic is requesting that then there is a deployment of one industrial symbiosis scale demonstrator, so one, but then you need to work with the replication and adaptation of this concept, and then simulation and business cases that somehow it also shows, apart from this one that you are going to develop, 2 or 3 alternative locations where this concept also could be applied. The expected outcomes, is to achieve a step change on circularity. And here we are talking for at least 20% reduction as compared of current state of the art, 20% reduction on the use of resources. So that means materials, energy, and water. Of course, to have a healthier also environment. And then to get this industrial symbiosis, and here a very important keyword is cross-sectoral cooperation. This is processes for planet. The idea is, yes, we need to be focused on energy-intensive process industries, but it needs to be cross-sectoral. If I may move to the next slide, please. Okay, I think we are already there. So what is behind this topic? Behind this topic is that wastewater discharge from the industry has decreased really quite a lot on the last decades, but we really need to go further. Before it was really linked to regulation. Now we really need the innovation that will allow us to go further. And then this topic is proposing is to maximize the recovery of the substances, but also of energy that is present on the wastewater, and then to increase the circularity and the reuse of the water so that we decrease the amount of fresh water that the industry uses. And then what is important here also is that what we say is in order to maximize the impact, the proposal should not be focused on one sector. So again, we are asking you to come with solutions that are applicable cross-sectorial, not only on one sector. This is important. Something that it was important also in this topic, we say that you should consider outcomes of one of the topics we mentioned there. The topic is a topic for 2020. So that means that the projects are still running. You don't have the outcomes there. So as I was saying on this topic, the one on energy efficiency before, we are not necessarily looking for continuity. We are just encouraging you to be aware that the projects exist, which could be their outcome, and see where it makes any sense to you to follow the work, to establish the links with them, etc. So what are these projects expected to deliver? First is to demonstrate the sustainable industrial water consumption based on new technologies, then to be fully circular on water, then using the fresh water as less as possible, and then to enable the techno-economic feasibility of the processes and of the technologies. And there, what we are saying at the end is demonstrate a contribution to EU climate neutrality goal. In order for you to demonstrate this contribution to EU climate neutrality goal, what is clear is that you also need to maximize recovery of energy. If you only go for substance, it's going to be very difficult for you to show that you are contributing to EU neutrality goals. So keep in mind the part which is recovery of energy is also very important for this topic in order to be able to fulfill with these expected outcomes. And then, yeah, I should be able to move to the last one. Super. Okay, so basically what we say in this topic is that the idea is that what we are recycling actually in Europe, but really worldwide too, is really not recycled, it's downcycled, because somehow the recycled material, the recycled product is going to be less good, not as good as the original one. So what we are looking for is for upcycling, so that once you have recycled, your product has the same qualities, is as good as your original one. The topics is really open to a very broad range of materials, and then whatever you need to do as innovation for upcycling, it will depend on the material you want to work with. But then the topic what it does is really highlight some of the aspects which are really cross-sectorial elements, and that should be taken into account. I will happy to answer on this, but I will not go too much on detail on this. I think it was pretty clear. We have not get many questions on the scope of this project. Yeah, maybe the only thing is that what we say in the topic is that plastics and composites are excluded because upcycling of plastics, mainly through chemical recycling and composites, was already taken on board by recent topics. And then there, what we make, we have a footnote where we say what they are not composites, because the definition of composites is very broad, and then what we get is always plenty of questions. Is this a composite? Is this a composite? So look at this footnote if you want to apply to this topic, and you fear that some of the what you want to do could be considered as composite, look into this footnote, and I think we give very clear indication of what it is not. So which are the expected outcomes here? Then is to prove the technical economic feasibility of the upcycling, to increase the use of secondary resources in the process industry, leading to significant increase in the resource efficiency, and then a reduction of CO2 emissions. What is important here is that we say a significant increase. And if you see then the title, we are talking upcycling large volumes. So with that, you have a clearing that we are not looking into niche markets. What we are looking is to upcycling of large volumes. Is the only way that you will be able to show your expected outcomes that you are, I mean, whatever you are doing will lead to significant increase on resource efficiency and the CO2 emissions. Important here also, yeah, we say increase the competitiveness of the European process industries, and here we are also looking at the SMEs. This topic is very important on the SMEs, which are massively represented on recycling. Another expected outcome is foster data sharing, that's fine, and then considering the application of digital product passport. Considering, and we have had the question already several times, we are not looking that you come with something totally fetch of what should be the digital product passport, but you already give some considerations into it in the project. And maybe the last thing, and here I link to what Javier is going to present later on, is we say in the long term, pave the way towards sustainable by design for circular products, sustainable and safe and sustainable by design. Here again, we are not looking that you come with something already totally clear of what the way should be, but if you are working on upcycling and you are looking, okay, what needs to be done in order to be able to upcycle a product, you are also going to gain some knowledge of, okay, how the product should be designed from the beginning, so upcycling is easier. So this is what we have in mind, which are the lessons learned during the project that could help us later on to apply this safe and sustainable design for the kind of waste and kind of product you want to upcycle. Y con esto he terminado. Espero que no fuera muy largo.